I just want to caution Christian women. When we say, oh, a Proverbs 31 woman was a girl boss. When we say Proverbs 31 woman was an entrepreneur, what are we really saying? Are we trying to appeal to the women in the world and say, our religion isn't patriarchal? Or are we trying to appeal to ourselves and try to make us feel comfortable with the fact that we still have a lot of feminist ideology that we need to get rid of? And that is helping us justify why we are focusing so much more on business instead of getting married, or focusing so much on business instead of being a good wife and mother, which is our main role, which is what Proverbs 31 is. It's really the Proverbs 31 wife. We like to say Proverbs 31 woman to include all women, but really she was the wife. The Bible says it was Proverbs 31 wife. Who can find a noble wife? She is virtuous. That was a wife. She wasn't a girl boss. She wasn't climbing the corporate ladder. She wasn't a feminist. She focused on her relationship with God, and her family came first. That was her main priority. And the business stuff and all the other stuff that she did was part-time. It was something that she did on the side to help, but that was not her main thing. Her husband was influential, it said. So her husband was the one that was making the money. And it freed her up to spend time with her family, to do what she needed to do to get knowledge. The biggest takeaways from the Proverbs 31 woman is she's valuable, she's productive, she's a wife and a child of God. More so than anything else. And the fact that she was an entrepreneur, that was mentioned once or twice in the chapter. The majority of the time talked about serving her house, serving her family, serving her children, making sure her house had everything it needed, making sure that she was presentable and dressed appropriately, making sure that she had a relationship with God. It mostly talked about who she was as a wife and her family. Her husband trusts her. Her children praise her. Her house has everything it needs. She's content. She has no fear of the winter, for she knows that she has everything she needs. The chapter is about her being a wife. You can be a Proverbs 31 woman and never start a business, never sell anything. As long as you are an effective wife and mother, you can be a Proverbs 31 woman. Hi wives and hi future wives, how are you? I hope you are doing well. As you know, this channel is Proverbs 31 University. I am Abigail. I hope to empower Black women to embrace faith, wifehood, and proper imaging. Like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Turn on the notifications. The Proverbs 31 woman. This has kind of been rubbing me the wrong way lately.
You're rubbing me the wrong way.
When a lot of women talk about the Proverbs 31 woman, a lot of times they talk about it as if she's a girl boss. She's this entrepreneur. And that's it. It's like a lot of women like to bypass the fact that not only was she married, not only did she take care of her home and manage and keep her home, and not only was she a child of God and had a good relationship with God, her husband enjoyed her and trusted her. Her children praised her. All of the whole chapter from 10 to 31 just tells you who she was. But a lot of times in Christian spaces, I see women are just amplifying the fact that she was an entrepreneur. And the reason why I think that is two reasons. One, I think a lot of Christian women like to use that as a bait to bait in women who are not Christian, who think that Christianity is a patriarchal religion and it mistreats women and it doesn't give women a voice. And so if they can pull in a lot of women who have the worldly mindset of feminism and say that actually the Proverbs 31 woman, she was a girl boss. She, inspected the field and she bought it and she had servants and she, sold clothes and she did this and that. If they can kind of entice women of the world in that way to come into the faith or be interested in what they have to say, I think it's a bait move. I think that's one of the reasons why I see some Christian women do that. Gotcha. And then number two, I think that there are a lot of Christian women who have the mindset of feminism. I believe that one of the reasons why there are less men in the evangelical church in America is because a lot of churchianity in the West has been corrupted by feminism. I said churchianity. I just think anytime there are humans involved, there's always going to be some mess at some point. Nothing is going to be completely perfect.
True, and yeah, that's pretty true. That's true, and yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. That's pretty true.
There are a lot of women who are Christians, but they're operating as feminists. This is very apparent in the Black church, in my opinion. If you look at the numbers for the male to female ratio in the Black church, it's the worst out of all of the ratios. Most evangelical churches, there are more women than men, but in the Black church, it's way worse. It's way more women than men. Now, there's all these conversations that say the Black church keep women single, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not getting into all that, but what I do want to say is it's very interesting. And so if there's more women, sometimes the content, the teaching, the messages, the conferences are going to show more women. You have a lot of women's conferences. There's a lot of girl boss conferences. There's a lot of conferences about starting your business, being a leader, all of this stuff. In my personal opinion, I don't feel like I see many conferences that has to do with women about wifehood specifically, just wifehood, just being a wife, being an effective wife, how to be one, how to get married. I'm sure they're there, but I just feel like I see more of the empowerment type of motivational type of conferences for women. I don't see enough of the wifehood aspect of female conferences in the church. I see more how you can be a leader, how you can start that business, how you can impact change in your community by, being a girl boss. There's a place for that, but I do think it's a lot more, and it's overwhelming at the amount of conferences that are catered to women in that vein, those topics. So I think it's those two things. I think one, it's a bait move for Christian women to get worldly women in the church and say, hey, it's not Christianity is not a patriarchal religion or anything like that. We're girl bosses too. You can be a girl boss. You don't have to stop climbing the corporate ladder. You don't have to stop working outside of the home. You don't have to stop your dreams, because look at the Proverbs 31 woman.
I'm just like you. I'm just like me. You're just like me. You're just like me.
And then the number two is there's a lot of feminist ideas in the church today. And so I just want to say that I think this is dangerous, because I don't think it covers the totality of the Proverbs 31 woman. The chapter is about her being an effective wife, because there is a difference between just being married and being an effective wife. That's what the chapter is mostly about. But when I see Christian women focus so much on the fact that she was an entrepreneur, I'm like, you're taking away the totality of who she was.
Stop it.
Yes, she did those things, and she was an entrepreneur for her family, not to go out and work a corporate job or to be an entrepreneur all day and night and come home and offer nothing to her family. Let's be right, because when you starting a business, it's very difficult. When you're starting a business, you have to give a lot of hours. You got to get a lot of time into that. It is not easy to start a business. So if you're going to talk about the Proverbs 31 woman was an entrepreneur, she was an entrepreneur part-time, but she was doing more for her family than anything else. Getting her knowledge from afar, giving advice and kindness and love. She was doing more for her family. She wasn't the type of entrepreneur where she's slaving over her business from the time she goes to bed to the time she stays up. It's just about her business and not her family. Because that's what a lot of entrepreneurship is, even if you're a Christian or you're not. You're going to be spending a lot of time outside of the home making calls, or even if you're in the home, you're going to be spending a lot of time doing things. And that is not who the Proverbs 31 woman is. She did have a business, but it was at home. It was part-time. When I say it was at home, like, yes, it says that she made clothes to sell to the merchants, so she might have gone to a market and sold it. But what I'm saying is that wasn't her main job. Her whole thing was about being an effective wife and mother to her children. And how could she be a wife and a mother that a man trusts and a mother that the children praise if she was out of the home working all day and night?
Exactly.
Let's be careful when we present the Proverbs 31 woman as an entrepreneur, as a girl boss. The totality of her whole life wasn't that. She was a wife. She was a mother. Her being a wife, her being a mother was mentioned way more than her, selling clothes. Her using her skills and her skill set to be a wife and mother, that was more so what the scripture is about. And I just don't want us to misrepresent her, because when women want to be like her or research her, they're going to think, oh, she's just like all these other feminists out there, like the women in the world. No, she wasn't. She was a child of God, and she was a wife and mom. That was her main priority.
And that's on period.
So I just want Christian women to get that right. I want you, if you're not a Christian, to understand who and what the Proverbs 31 woman was, because you may see a lot of different videos and people mentioning the fact that she was an entrepreneur, but that's not all she was. That was just a small percentage of who she was. She was a godly woman. She was a child of God. She was a wife. She was a mother. That was the most important thing in her life. Everything else, the entrepreneurship, everything else was a backseat. It wasn't all of who she was. Please understand that. And let's not send the wrong message out there to the ladies who want to be wives and mothers and feel like, oh, I got to start a business if I'm going to be a Proverbs 31 woman. No. You don't have to. If that's not where God is leading you, no. And if you're not a wife, you can get there by looking at the attributes that she had, applying it to your life, and ask God to send you the right man.